all the traditional knowledge, it's very interesting for me because it is the key for circularity. Trying to be more creative with the use of the products before you can actually send it to be recycled. In nature, there is no waste because everything has its own different stakeholder that will make use of it. People who would send their panels to be recycled to XYZ company, and then they realize that the company doesn't recycle them, but they send them to landfill. Then they create that barrier in there in the sense of they don't trust that the panels can be recycled.
Just been sitting down with Alex from RMIT. She's an industrial designer. She's involved in the circular economy. She's also involved in a no waste movement and a proponent or exponent of the 10 R's. Yep, there are 10 of them. Alex was one of the most vital people I've ever had on the podcast. We had a great time. Her breadth of knowledge when it comes to community relationships and the connection to what we do was absolutely amazing. Now, before we get stuck into the podcast, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to this channel and, of course, to Greenwood Academy.
I would definitely say that all the different amount of variety of fruits and vegetables where I come from, it's amazing. You wouldn't be... Actually, maybe I would be a little bit too wild in saying this, but most of the people who don't have their taste buds ready for the amount of flavorness,
wow.
You know, they will be like, oh my God, but it's amazing. That's probably one of the things that I miss the most. The flavor of fruits and vegetables is, wow, mind-blowing.
And we were talking also about the importance of food for not only community, but for connection and the imparting and the flow of knowledge as well. Can you? Yeah, because as I said before, I wish we had the camera on before. But yeah, let's get stuck into it from there.
Well, first of all, like Mexican is like this kind of Latin culture that is really focused on family and relationship, but relationships that are like actually listening to each other. Then it's not just being there because you have to. Is that everyone is there to help each other, and then the food is like one of the main focus of family activities in the sense of you do it with someone every single time, like breakfast and dinner and lunch. All of that is revolved about your family and about the things that, what happened in your day, what did you feel? And people is used to explain what they think, what they feel, and then just talk about it. So they sort of reflect a lot about their daily lives without even knowing about it, and sharing a lot of things like, oh, do you remember your great-grandmother used to do that? Or maybe she used to do this in this way. Or maybe it's something that if you are sad, it's like, oh, your grandma, you know what? She would do this for you. And then your mom goes and prepares something that will make you feel better. Food is more than just the nutritional part of the day. It's more like a little bit of food for the soul, I would say.
So it's a nurturing thing, and there's not just that mechanics of eating. And there seems to be a lot of cultures like that, but a lot of the Anglo culture, I'll say, like 10, or maybe they were centuries ago, but they tend not to be like that now. Like in Australia, we are multicultural, but if you're sort of from an English background, and forgive the people listening who have got an English background, it tends not to be like that. But if you're like, Korean, Italian, Spanish, Serbian, South American, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a little bit, it's different, isn't it?
It is. It's like embedded in your blood sort of thing. Like Italians, Brazilians, people from I think people from Portugal as well. Like people who have this kind of Latin culture, they like, I think we share sort of the same sort of values amongst food.
Why is that
family.
though?
I don't know, but it's so interesting because I have some Italian friends and they were like, oh, you know what? Sometimes people think that the Italians are like the Latin American people from Europe because there is very similar, like there's a lot of similarities in between the way that we think, the way that we do, the way that we act. Like, you're not gonna listen to me being quiet. Like, I laugh really loud. I talk a lot, and normally my level of voice is quite high. And then people are like, oh my God, what is this girl doing? But then I go with my friends from Italy, Brazil, and everyone. It's just like, it feels like home. Whereas if you're with someone who's like, very strict and quiet and don't move and everything is to be perfect. I'm like, nah, that doesn't vibe with me.
It's really funny you should say that because you mentioned Italians and South Americans. We had a guest in, Andreas Rastelli, and he's Venezuelan, Italian-Venezuelan. And he has some similar traits to you. And he was telling us the story when he came to Australia and he had a coffee. And he said it was a fantastic coffee. And he went to the guy at the coffee. He goes, mate, do you win an award? This is the best coffee. And the Australian guy goes, no, mate, that's just normal coffee here, you know. But he's got that passion, you know, and he doesn't hold back.
Yeah.
And it's very open, isn't it? Like when you're like that, you're open to the world.
It is the thing. And that's another very interesting part. You are open to know people, to talk to them, to know more about things. Is this kind of, I would say this is kind of inner drive that you are eager to know about the other person, to know a little bit of what's going around you, and to actually have time to observe what's happening around you and react to it from a very open area, like I would say probably without any kind of prejudgment about it, because you are ready to just listen. And obviously being really loud all the time and talking all the time, it's like you have a lot of information to talk to whoever that you may run into, because you are there. You are there to the world, basically.
Do you think, and I mean, it's dangerous to generalize and stereotype, but do you think Latin people are more in the moment than, say, some other cultures?
Well, right now, I don't know. There's like a fever for Latin American people, and I think everything is linked to many things. But one of them is the World Cup. So the World Cup is going to be, I think, United States, Canada, and Mexico.
That's right.
But then, like, all my family in Mexico is like, you need to see what's going on in the city. Everything is about soccer. And then I have people, like friends in here who are like, oh, yeah, and the soccer and the games, and I don't know. And everyone was trying to get
Let's call it the real football from now on.
Yeah, like for me, obviously, for me it's football.
That's it,
you know?
that's it.
Then for me, there's many things that have always been there. And now people starting to understand a little more Spanish and then getting a little bit more into the culture. That, for example, I don't know if you have heard about it, but there's this kind of fever about this little animal that is called, well, in English, I think it's axolot. In Spanish...
It's a fish. No? Animal.
It's like, it is an animal. It's not a fish.
I think it's something else. Sorry, that's completely wrong.
No,
Forgive
good.
me.
But it is, I think like a salamander, probably the equivalent, something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this is like a traditional species for us. It's like ancient. It has like a really meaningful presence in our culture, and now it's like really popular all around the world. And this species is only native to Mexico. And the other day I read that somehow there was one of these little creatures found in one of the rivers in London. Exactly. So my reaction was like, how come did that get over there and then it just found in the river? So that meaning there was a way that it got there and not in a natural way. So I think this kind of, and I think it's everything. Once you start making something really popular, people start like consuming that without actually understanding what it is or what it means. So I think that's one of the main things that right now is popping in my head, because now the figure of the axolot is everywhere and everyone talks about it. And there's like, memes and things like that. And it's like, it has been there with us for ages.
It's funny because to me, I listen to that. I think this is that part of that globalism.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you a question. And I know we're not anywhere near circular economy or any of that, but all these are, it's all connected, right? Do you think with the way things are now that cultures and individual countries are losing that sense of identity a bit?
I would say so. It's good. I would say probably it has its pros and its cons, because nowadays everything is about like K-pop, for example. And in Mexico, you would have this kind of really rural areas that they know about K-pop, and they have this kind of like competitions and stores and everything. So it is good that you are open to different kind of things, but at the same time, as it's something new, people tend to prepare for things that are new, sort of exciting, contrasting to the things that are more traditional. So that is making sometimes the traditional bits lose a little bit of that importance. It's not that it's bad. It's just no, that's wrong. It is bad that you don't reflect and you don't give the importance to the traditional things, because then you lose that understanding and that connection. If you only go for the new things all the time, that will give us obviously the entrance to this kind of consumerism pattern that takes us where we are right now.
I think too it's correlated to how old the culture is. Like, I have this debate a lot, but Australia is still young.
Oh, yeah.
And it's debatable we've even got a culture yet. Let's be honest. But so I think when you are a younger nation, the only true culture is the indigenous people who were before any white man, right? So, but the younger a country is, the harder it is to develop a strong culture, and the easier it is to be swayed by other cultures.
It is. And at the same time, it is so easy to just leave the old things behind when you don't realize how precious the old things are when they were used to do in the first way. Like, I don't know, most of the times it's like going again to the food. If you prepare potato soup, now you can get them already made in the supermarket. But then the entire process and the entire nutritional value of doing it yourself is lost. In the end result is you eat potato soup, but you don't get the same sort of nutrition from one option or the other. I think it's the same sort of thing with everything, in the way of new doesn't need to be bad as long as you know that it's good or that it's better. If you don't really know that it's better, then why do you go for it, even if it's new? You need to actually ask yourself if that's going to be something that is beneficial or not.
Yeah, that's. I think that's the key, isn't it?
It is, and most of the people don't stop to realize that. They don't stop even to ask. It's just like they need to have something ready, something fast, something on the go. But then in the long run, you're not making yourself any good.
But they accept it quickly for that instant gratification. Like, we were saying off camera about AI, like questioning, does it actually improve, the quality of people's lives? But again, that's a whole podcast in itself. I'd like to get back to food and waste.
Yes.
So I've made that connection right. Like, growing up, when the family's preparing food, well, they're very aware of using and utilising most parts of the animal, most parts of the vegetable and the cereal.
Yes,
yeah.
It is. The simplest thing I would say is like chicken soup. Nothing goes wasted. Like, for me, it is very common. Oh, well, that's one of the things. In Mexico, you have street food everywhere. It's very common, and you get many types of food. But one of the most common ones is chicken feet. Personally, I don't like it, but it's one of the most nutritional part of the chicken.
All the gelatin and cut.
Because it's all the collagen and all the proteins that go with it. Yeah.
Wow.
So in the sense, when you are making a chicken soup, you make the broth with sometimes like the cartilage part and the bones, sometimes the skin, and all that nutritional bits from all that little part that normally are discarded away is what gives you like a really nice skin, healthy hair, all these kind of things. So it's trying to make a little bit of, I would say, study in a way that you think, okay, I can make all of this eatable or all of this useful in a way. And in the end it is. And it gives you a better way of living. You reduce your waste, you reduce the times that you need to go shopping for things, you can plan better for the things that come, like the meals that are coming, and you're staying healthy. And obviously that has like a further impact in the sense of you probably don't get ill that often. So it is more than just, oh, I'm going to save this or I'm going to reduce the waste. It's like a whole systems thinking that it's applied to it. And I don't think that they actually are aware that they do it. Like we don't think about like, oh yeah, I'm doing systems thinking while I'm preparing my chicken soup for dinner.
Wow.
But they do. So it's all the traditional knowledge. It's very interesting for me because it is the key for circularity.
Yeah, because you're really forging that connection with nature, with the food you eat. It's like when you grow something and you eat it, there's a certain appreciation that there'll be a heck of a lot more than if you go out, and even if you buy the best quality, it's different from going out to the garden and going and taking it in and start eating it. There's a certain feeling. I'd like to talk about like you growing up in Mexico in school, and at what stage. Yeah, please.
Now that you mentioned that, this is very interesting for me because I was talking to another set of friends. We were from different parts of Latin America and as well from different parts of Australia, and we were talking about the food snacks. It's very interesting for me because when I was young, like the food snacks were sandwiches and like the street food that you would get right outside your school door. It was like carrots, capsicum with obviously your lime, your salt, a little bit of chili, and you get popcorn, and you would get like these kind of chips as well. But most of the times you would get that option between like the vegetables with tajin, which is a type of dry like powder sauce, and the chips. But you would get like, let's say, the healthy and the non-healthy option. And when I was little, it was common in all the schools. It doesn't matter if your school was like from like rich people or from like popular schools, everyone had the same options. And then for me, it represents different kind of mindset because talking to another friend, she was like, oh no, in my school, we only had like fried options. Like whatever that like could be like the chicken nuggets or things like that. And I'm like, you're a kid and your food options are that.
Wow.
So it's like, how are you expecting to have a healthy brain if you're feeding your brain since you're a little kid with something that is fried and the nutritional value is almost close to nothing? So there's many things. I think food is like an underestimated topic, but it has massive impacts.
It's funny. I'll be careful here, but in America, most of the contracts with the schools, from a food perspective, are owned by companies who are, if not have ties to the military, are the military themselves. So you're going, and the prisons as well. So they're going in with the cheapest option, the crappiest food, compared to where Ayuka's from, Japan.
Yeah.
And they have the kids are served the most healthiest foods you could possibly have. Right. And they are hardly ever sick and all of this stuff. And it's So it's like, you put the wrong fuel in your body, like the wrong fuel in a car or whatever, it's going to not work.
And it has been scientifically proven that this type of junk food, they reduce the brain function of the children. And nevertheless, people keep doing it.
Yeah, they act as they go. It goes even worse. You're right. It's called nutrient robbing, and they actually, if you've got nutrients in your body, eat this shit. So this stuff, don't cut that out. You can keep it in, and it takes away what. See, it's really bad. Like
it is.
Like, all right, back to the school. Like, at what stage? So I assume you were in primary school, and then you went to high school. At what stage did you start getting interested in? Because you studied industrial design at uni, didn't you? So were you the kind of kid who go, year 10, I know I want to be an industrial designer, or?
No, actually, well, yes and no, because everything started because my dad was part of like, I would say governmental department that works with sustainability, but it was like very early back then. And then one day my dad brought home a pen made of like cornstarch. And the first thing that I did was I bite into the pen. And my dad was like, no. Yeah. He was like, no, you cannot eat it. It's not food. And then my brain was like, how come I get a pen that is made out of corn, but I cannot eat it? But I was very young, maybe, I don't know. I could be like 10 years, maybe less. And anyways, that stuck to my head. And then I was thinking, okay, then how is the pen made? And that kind of interest and curiosity on how the things were made is what made me think, okay, I am definitely not going to go on the path of engineering because that's way too much like technical for me. But I want to see how I can find something that you can like mix art and science together to have something into a daily life. And anyways, I stumbled onto industrial design. But then while studying industrial design, you see all these massive impacts of industrial manufacturing. And I was thinking, wait a minute, something is not really right in here, because you don't really realize how much waste it is in the process of making stuff. And then back then it was probably one of the things that marked me the most was that I was not really that good at drawing, while all my peers were amazing. You know, this kind of sketches.
Freehand stuff.
Yeah, freehand stuff. And then we went to a talk about an architect, which back then was a pioneer using AutoCAD and this kind of like digital stuff. And he said, you know what? Well, he was obviously in the talk talking to everyone. He said, I was really bad at drawing all my life. Then I started my architectural firm and I decided that I was not going to do it the old way. So I decided that instead of my lack of drawing skills being my flaw, it was going to be like the thing that would mark my difference in the world.
Wow.
And then I was thinking, this man is talking to me somehow. Obviously, I'm not going to start my architectural firm, right? But it's like, okay, if I'm not really good at something, then what I'm really good at? And we had only one class that was about design and environmental science. And I had this fantastic talk with this professor who told me basically that when he started his industrial design practice, he was working for a beverage company. And then he helped this beverage company produce heaps of plastic containers, because back then it was like the new thing. Everyone needed to do like everything made by plastic. And then when he realized the amount of plastic that he had helped that company create, he realized that all that plastic was going nowhere but to landfill. So he started to have this kind of different reflections on what do I do as an industrial designer and what can I do to stop producing waste or stop producing things that are not really necessary. And that stuck to my brain so much that I said, okay, I need to start going deeper into this, trying to understand what makes people act the way that they act. Why would someone prefer something new, something old, something plastic, something bottle, like glass? And then it started from there. It's just about being curious of the things that are already there for you. You never stop to think about it.
Is this in Mexico City?
All of this is in Mexico City.
Yeah, so this is where you grew up in Mexico.
Yes.
Huge place, 25 million, hot altitude of 3,000 meters or something. It's very high.
It is, and it's mass. Like the amount of people that is in there, most of the people in here will have a heart attack just trying to go to the train station or in the streets. It's fantastic, but as well, again, it's this kind of environment where everything is so fast and so noisy that somehow your brain learns to tune to the things that you need to do, the things that you want to listen to, the things that you want to learn, and you start to sort of focus on how the main points are connected, ignoring a little bit all the chaos and the surroundings. I really liked it. I need to say.
It'd be
very nice.
Effectively the whole population of Australia in one city. Australia's about 26 and a bit million.
Yeah.
It's hard to fathom because, we have these, I think 5 million maybe in Melbourne or something. I can't remember, but they're not huge compared to overseas. While you were studying and at high school, this is before you went into the industrial, because obviously you're going through high school. Did you have any sort of mentors, any teachers that really stuck out?
In high school?
Or people at that time who just stuck out in your mind as really helpful?
There would be, I would say like 3. Well, I'm thinking of many more, but 3 that actually taught me something that stuck to my brain. One was a fantastic geography teacher who was teaching us, again, with the food topic, about the science of the earth, on how the earth heats underground, and then the heat needs to go through somewhere. So he was saying, when you're making pancakes, take a look on the bubbles that you see, is that it is so hot under that it needs to find its way up.
Yep.
And then our homework was to go home and make pancakes.
Oh, nice. That's a good one. I
hope everyone in their lives have that kind of homework.
Yes.
Because it does stick to your brain. Like, I don't know, more than 20 years after. I still remember that thing. So that's one of them. Another one was probably my physics teacher. He was this kind of really talented person who was like a physics teacher, but at the same time, he could help with some sort of first aid stuff, and he was doing heaps of other things. But he was this kind of person who is like, okay, I'm going to help you to understand physics, but not in the way that is traditionally made, that you only sit there and try to write down things. It's like, I'm going to make engagement activities with you so you understand it. And then you would create different kind of models, but you would do things hands-on. So having that kind of hands-on experience teach you more than if you are just like aside from it, because that kind of relationship is what makes you understand things even better, I would say.
Well, it's all about creating neural pathways as well. I physically pick up this. I can read about how to pick up a pair of glasses, but until I go, how do I know? So I'm creating these pathways, helps with the whole learning process. It's like, I don't know if you can drive a car with a manual.
In Mexico, I did.
Yeah, well, you could read a book on how to press that clutch in, but until you do it, you have no idea.
Exactly.
Because you have to feel it. You have to feel it.
The theory without the practice is probably not. Sorry.
Now, industrial design, can you, for the people listening, like, I've got my own idea of what it means, but what's your definition of industrial design? Is it, and does form follow function, or does function follow form?
That is a very interesting topic as well, because the way that I was trained, it was that industrial design needs to have 4 different realms to actually be good design. So it needs to have the ergonomics, it needs to have the production, it needs to have the aesthetics, and I think it needs to have, there was another one, I forgot about it, but the point is you need to understand how the people use the objects, how it is manufactured, if it's, it's function, production, ergonomics. Okay, I'm gonna get the other one while I speak. So it was, for example, if you, like one of the things that we needed to do, it was a hairdryer. They said like, you need to get a hairdryer in Teams. You literally unassemble everything. And your task is to assemble everything again. So you will start to understand the insides of the product, to understand what's inside, how it needs to be assembled, how the people use it. Is it comfortable to have the handle in a way or in another? So you start to think more about all these different kind of things that are interconnected for a product to be successful than just to design something pretty. That's something that for me sums it up. Industrial design is producing, from my understanding, most of it is physical objects that will be able to be used by many people, that are comfortable, that are functional, but at the same time, it gives you an aesthetic experience.
Because we are visual beasts, aren't we? This is the thing. We rely so much on this, a bit on this as well, a lot on this, but it's more this.
Yes.
Fortunately, unfortunately. So things do have to look nice.
It does, but at the same time, that's a trick there. For example, the toothbrush. So the first thing that we got introduced to when we were studying industrial design, it was like, do you know, like I think the title of the video was something like Story of the Stuff. Anyways, so it was this kind of documentary about IDEO, and then they found that the toothbrush that they designed, it was found in the beaches of, I don't know, a very remote place.
Yeah, wow.
Because the way that they design stuff sometimes, or that many designers do, is that you combine like 2 different materials to make the handle more ergonomic, like maybe more soft. So then what you have is like 2 plastics that are melted, but 2 different plastics. So it's like the rubbery part and then the hard stuff of the handle of the toothbrush. So those 2 materials combined, as is very hard to unassemble it for recycling, that means that the toothbrush can only go to the bin.
Oh, okay, right.
It is really complicated to recycle things that are of 1 or more materials, because the way of, like chemically, you need to do a lot of effort.
You have to break the bonds.
Break them down,
and that could be expensive and hard and not 100%. I can see 2 different plastics, you'd have to go.
Exactly. So it is very complicated, but it does make you think about many things. That's why most of the design that is trying to be like a little bit more sustainable is just monomaterial, like one material. Bamboo. But again, that's this kind of topic on if a material can be compostable, where? You cannot throw compostable things in your compostable home bin if they are supposed to be composted in an industrial facility, because then that means that they are not going to decompose in a natural way under natural circumstances, and it's the same thing as plastic in the sense of it's not going to degrade as fast as you think. It's a lot of science between what can you do to be more sustainable, but how do you make people aware of how to use that sustainable option? It's a fantastic topic.
It's really interesting too, because you want the products to be durable.
You do.
But if to get them more durable comes at a cost of maybe they're harder to break down later on.
It is. And sometimes it comes to this kind of loophole where if you make it last longer, then that means that they are like, who's going to be able to be responsible of that specific product once it reaches its end of life? Instead of you would design something that would last like 5 years, let's say, and it could be like biodegradable, like you can put in your compost bin, at least you would somehow get the sense of when it starts, when it finishes, and then what you can do next. And there's a lot of complexity in that kind of thinking. And toothbrush maybe is like one of the simple examples. But nowadays we are with so much technology and so many things that are like every time is smaller and smaller, more complex, more efficient and more engineered, that everything is all in one. It's very hard to unassemble it. And it's very hard for the things to start degrading. And then when I was thinking, okay, we are using bamboo or plastic to produce a toothbrush. How did people before these materials brush their teeth?
With a stick, charcoal and salt. And they had pretty good teeth, apparently. Most of them, yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. You're like, sometimes we just need to ask ourselves, do we really need this? Do we really need a new design? Instead of, what can I do with the things that are already there to just try to solve this issue?
But that's not, what you just said is not pure industrial design, is
no,
it?
It's
that goes
part
beyond
of everything.
it.
Yeah,
it goes beyond it. So all right, you're at uni and you're doing industrial design and you finished the course.
Yep.
What was your first job? And I assume you're still in Mexico City?
Yeah.
What was
still
your
Mexico City.
what was your first job?
Industrial design in a design house that it is called La Casa de los Trabajos, meaning the house of the jobs, literal meaning. Wow. But it was an architecture and industrial design firm that what they do basically is like retail design, and they do like furniture design for big companies, but at the same time they are trying to do a little bit of this like new kind of design, I would say. For example, with them, it was the first time that I needed to design like a stand-up exhibition thing for, I can't remember which product, but it was made out of recycled plastic. So this kind of like melted plastic that they come in like big planks, and then you just cut them down like that.
Yeah, right.
I needed to work on that kind of project. And then like they were trying, it was very cool because it was architects, designers, and like marketing people in the same team, in the same table. So you would literally yell, and the architect will listen to you, and then the marketing girl would answer. So that, again, it's about learning to communicate in a way that everyone would understand it. And I had a massive, really good time in there. But I was there only for 1 year, because then I came to Australia.
Oh, okay. And of course, the big question is, there's a million places to go.
Yeah.
Right. Number one, why did you want to move away from Mexico City? You got family there, etc. And two, why did you move to Australia?
It was very simple, really, because my only thing that I thought is I want somewhere that they speak English. But United States was something like, it's just like the neighbor, It's like,
yeah.
and most of the Mexicans normally go to United States.
You could have gone to Canada. You could go to New Zealand.
But by then, I was like, okay, like United States, Canada, no, because I sort of already know about it. I want something different, something that I don't know. And then it was like, obviously, all this space of Great Britain. And I'm like, but that's very expensive for me. No, I cannot do that. And then Australia was the option where I could have a scholarship.
Good.
So I was like, okay. So there was a scholarship in, I can't remember, somewhere in Great Britain, but somewhere in Australia. And I said, okay, I will apply. And whatever works, it works. And it did work with Australia. And I said, okay, that's where I'm going.
But that doesn't answer the question of why you want to leave in the first place.
So where I studied...
I'm probing here.
Yeah, sure. It was very common that, where I studied industrial design is like a small school within a massive university. It's the biggest university in Latin America. So us being so small, it meant that we could have like more opportunities to do things differently. And being industrial design, we were already like one group of people who were used to do things differently. So everyone at the end bit of their like career, they had the opportunity to do the exchange. They would go to different places. They would go to Japan, Korea, other parts of South America, United States, wherever. So it was sort of something that you would be encouraged to, just to expand your knowledge and to go out of your normal boundaries to learn something and then come back to Mexico.
So it wasn't a case of, I want to leave Mexico.
No. It was more of the sense of, I know that there is things that are bigger. I know that there's things of like living and building stuff, manufacturing stuff, designing that is different from Mexico. So what else is out there? So when I came to Australia and I studied just like 6 months in here, I saw so many things that were so different from Mexico that I just went back to finish my career. And then I came back to Australia.
Because?
Well, because there was many things. One of them was that I met my partner here. So obviously I wanted to come back to be with my partner. But at the same time is that in Australia, you would have much more liberty of doing things compared to Mexico. I love Mexico, but I don't think that I would be able to find as many opportunities in here as I did back there because it's the same sort of principle. Being in a city so big with so many people and so many things going on, it was not as easy to find opportunities as in here because I'm going to just try to explain myself in this. Having so much people in one same place, that means that you have heaps of competition.
Yeah, now I see.
And you would have heaps of different things that would stop you to going in the way that you want to.
Right.
Whereas in here, as it is new and somehow it is not as big and it is just like learning, they are more open to do things in a more innovative way. So I was thinking, well, that kind of makes sense for me that I can try more things in here. And you have the really good thing that you can just take public transport and you can be in the mountains, you can be in the beach, you can be in the city, you can be in the woods.
Well, Mexico didn't have that.
Yes, but the urban space is quite big. And there's a lot of traffic.
Right.
And it's like a little bit more complicated to try to go onto all these different kind of places. It takes longer. For example, this is very interesting.
Yeah.
I am used to measure the distances by time because in Mexico, something that could be very close to you, you would take 1 hour, 1 hour and a half, depending on the traffic.
Yeah, right.
And then in here is by kilometers, you know? Yeah. So I'm like, when someone tells me like, oh no, it's just like 5 kilometers away. My brain is not wired to understand kilometers.
Yes.
You're like, tell me 5 minutes, 10 minutes, then I would get it.
Yeah, right.
So that kind of different mindset as well comes along in the sense of what do I want in the future? What do I want to achieve? And Australia meant that for me.
I want to talk about industrial design a little bit more. How important to you is the whole understanding of those sacred geometries, those numbers, the ratios and all those things that make...
It is very important because this is linked to the fact that we are visual people. Being visual people, you are unaware that you are looking for geometry and things that are symmetrical. And your brain is wired to try to understand what it sees or to make an understanding of what it sees. So definitely, like geometrical stuff, things that somehow make some mathematical sense in your brain, you would understand it as more beautiful. And if it's more beautiful, you tend to go to like actually choose that thing.
Yep.
But then you can have the other scale of aesthetics. If you want something that is completely disruptive, then you would get more people. Like you would get different kind of, I would say audience. But it is about understanding how you can play with the geometries, play with the aesthetics, play with the colors, play with this kind of different aspects of what makes things attractive for people depending on your audience.
It's funny, isn't it? Because it could be almost looked upon as being a mechanistic thing because it is coming down to numbers and mathematics. But I like to think that it's not... I mean, of course it's number. Everything you're trying to put it into numbers, but I like to think that there's other stuff going on as well. There's this... It's all about these ratios, the relationships, these energies.
All the fractals as well.
Yeah, Mandelbrot said. So we can talk about a lot of stuff. This is because it's we are, you know, we have these eyes, and I think some people learn that, and others like there's some good artists out there. They just somehow know it, you know. Can I ask you about nature and nurture? Because it sounds like your father was involved in a similar field. So how being a good industrial designer, is that nature or nurture?
It started when my dad took me to one of the only probably activities about like cleanups in one of these like very small tree area in Mexico City. Then like his work colleagues were inviting his families to go to do this cleanup in the woods, in the middle of the woods, and you would find heaps of plastic products that you don't even know how they end up in. So I was quite impacted by that because I didn't know why people did it. Like, I understand that you need to buy something plastic, you're hungry, you're thirsty, whatever, but then why do you leave it in the woods? So it was something that I said, okay, maybe what I need to do, maybe it's producing something that will degrade even if people leave it on the floor. But then I realized now that it goes more along the lines of material innovation, material science than industrial design per se.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, I still think that industrial designers can change behaviors if they design something to be used in a way or to be disposed of in a way, and a specific thing. They do have that kind of probably quiet power because they understand all the like the scientific, but as well, I would say the psychological side of the objects. And then if you understand that, then you can make something different about it. So for example, all this kind of huge popularity of the plastics, it was because the marketing people back then was saying, oh, who's the one who's all the time in the kitchen, like the women? And so the marketing product was, make your life easier or make it faster. With plastics, you can just throw it in the bin.
Right.
There's actually an example of
wow.
that. Yeah, like that flyer that it says you can just throw it in the bin. And obviously back then it was fantastic for them. But now we are dealing with all the consequences of that kind of behavior. So yeah, industrial design or engineers, marketing people, they have the answers that we need as well.
As you said before, though, it's also about if you sort of focus on one part of it, somewhere else is going to suffer. And obviously all of this is, you know, under the economic reality of the world we live in, and that's tempers everything. And we're not going to talk about consumerism and materialism. Well, we will, but not. I have my I have my own views on all of that stuff, and you know, infinite growth in the finite world and all of that stuff. I better stop. All right, so you come out to Australia, and so you come out to Australia, and you've done a bit of study. You've gone back to Mexico City, then you've gone, hey, I'm out to Australia. Partner, what's the job? What's your first job in Australia?
The real job?
No,
or
any job.
Any job?
Yeah, any job.
Okay, yes, it was a waitress. Because this is something that maybe was just me, maybe not. Some other people who have immigrated here can let me know. But as my degree was not from an Australian institution, it was very hard to try to make that kind of comparison of what I could do, what I couldn't do.
It's ridiculous, isn't it?
It was quite complicated, I need to say, because it did take a little bit of time, and then COVID happened.
Oh, nice timing.
Yeah, exactly. So we were like, my God, 6 months being waitress, and now it's like, what am I going to do? So I would say one of the things that has taught me the most in this time that I've been in Australia, because almost 9 years, it was COVID. Because COVID, it linked me more towards the people, towards the things that they do, and people actually connecting. Because again, linked to food. My neighbor from the apartment in front of me, she grew kale and broccoli and tomatoes and many things in her balcony, and I didn't know. So in COVID, I used to bake bread. She used to have all her vegetable garden and stuff. We would make a swap.
Yeah, lovely.
I would give bread and she would give me the kale. And then it started to I don't know, it planted a seed on my brain of what community can do. If this is just between her and me because we are just neighbors, and back then we have the 5 kilometer thing that you cannot go out and all that kind of thing.
Gosh,
you need to be creative on the things that you do. And then it was very, very important for me because I started to I couldn't do anything around, and many of the retail and restaurants, and they were closed, or they were very, I don't know. They were very tight on the people that they will be hiring. And I ended up being a nanny. And then being a nanny gave me a whole new perspective on the world, which is kids. And being a nanny led me as well to meet people who was doing sustainable architecture. And this friend who is an architect, she was like, Alex, you really need to try to pursue something with research, because all this time that we have been in lockdown, you have started to do different kind of experiments with sustainable cardboard or different kind of material made out of milk. All these kind of things that are more towards the research than towards industrial design per se. So that lockdown time for me was a personal awareness time of the things that I want to do and how I can connect things. And from there as well, it was I would say the starting point of the project that I do now with the community, in the sense of I'm trying to have these workshops with the community to understand the same kind of thing. Is we are community, we are powerful, and we can do things differently. And that has led to a whole new bunch different of conversations with different people who are doing things. It's just, you don't hear about them. It's not that often that you hear about the good things happening and all the innovation going around sustainability. I don't know really why. I think it's just that they don't really come up into the big news or something, but there's so much things going on. It's just people need to be aware of.
Now, off camera, we were talking about during COVID, and I said, I wish you probably thought, I wish I was back in Mexico. But you said, no, I actually made the most of it. And you were talking about cardboard and design from a furniture perspective. Can you sort of expand a bit on that?
It is. I think cardboard is one of the materials that is not properly explored, because cardboard is one of these materials that it could be recycled quite easily. There's infrastructure for it and people already know, and it's very easy to handle as well. So while we were in COVID, what I did is that I had this kind of set of designs for these kind of toys that kids can wear, but at the same time, it's not only they can wear it, so they can assemble it.
Hang on, toys they can wear?
Yes. You see? That's exactly
I
the
thought you
reaction.
made a mistake.
No,
Wow.
it is the entire purpose of that design that I created is that you would get the design as in flat pieces, and then the children and their families, or the children and the groups of friends or whatever, they can assemble it together. So it creates like a little car. Well, I had like 4 designs. The one that was in the store from Mexico, it was like a car. So they assemble the car. It's cardboard, and they can paint on it. They can personalize it, and it has like a straps, so they can put it on them, and then they can wear it. It's like a vehicle, but they create it. The entire experience is in itself the toy.
Wow.
And by the end, it's cardboard. So obviously, if it gets wet, it's going to get destroyed or whatever. But that means that they can just put that into the recycling bin. Meaning, the kids will learn that there's a cycle for the product that they have. So they can be creative. They can have hands-on experience. They can have the community experience or group experience. And on top of that, realize, hey, guess what? This doesn't need to go to the bin. Most of the toys of the kids, they either go like to the bin or to charity, and if they are very lucky, to toy libraries.
Yeah.
But it's about trying to help to close that loop in their brains from the very early stage. And then at the same time, it was a contest, because in lockdown, everyone started to be more creative, I guess. Well, not everyone, but many. So there was this digital contest about creating furniture made out of cardboard. But I recovered cardboard from a Samsung special TV. I'm not entirely sure what.
Yeah, right.
But it was a worldwide contest. And it was really cool creations in there. So the one that I did was like a shelf, entirely made out of cardboard, and everything was just with like connection of the ensembles.
For books, a shelf for books. Yeah.
I could put like even my mugs. So the entire design, I would say, benefit was that I did it with like folding strategies, in the sense that it could withstand things that are a bit heavy. Not that you could put like your like mug in there with the liquid, but you could put like books or notebooks or a small like teacups, things like are not super heavy, but anyways, you could put it on your wall. And anyway, so in COVID, I started to realize the massive potential of cardboard. And cardboard, as it can be recycled, I think up to maybe 8 times. Once it finishes, the only thing that is left about it is just basically water and fiber. And obviously fiber degrades in water. And I was thinking, hey, this is a really cool material that people don't really pay attention to. And it has the benefit of that you can create your own art on it. So in the toys, it was about the children exploring what they want, their personalities, the things that they wanted to express on the toys. So it's going, again, beyond the object itself. It's about making you understand many things and reflect things in a different way than just a plastic toy would give to you.
We were talking before that like cardboard I've seen beds made out of cardboard and seats, and there was a building at the All Energies conference last year, which at Jeff's Shed, in the city, from a company called Enphase, and they made their whole booth.
Yeah.
It was as long as this studio, and almost as wide, a cardboard house.
It is fantastic.
It's like if you put an epoxy covering on the cardboard and it becomes even strong. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do.
It is.
But you can't recycle too bad after
once you
epoxy.
After that you can.
Yeah, right.
But when I was in architecture school, because in Mexico, in the school where I studied, you needed to study architecture for 1 year, then do an exam to see if you were allowed to go to the industrial design career. And then I studied architecture for 2 years until I passed the exam and I got into the industrial design career. But when I was in architecture, there was a fantastic activity where they told us that we needed to build an arc only using cardboard, no glue allowed, and it needed to withstand the weight of a normal person.
What?
An arc.
Right.
No glue. And no ensembles either. So the point, it was like...
Freestanding.
Freestanding. So that's the beauty of cardboard and human creativity. So it was linked to the ancient techniques as well, to understand that the geometrical form and figures that you can do, they could be related to each other, and then they could distribute the weight load. like in a uniform way, and it can be actually very strong. So in the end, you end up with, I don't know, I think it was like 8 or 10 pieces. And then you needed to, like, there was like two like rectangle parts, but then the arc was this kind of geometrical pieces that were all perfectly together. So when you put the weight on the top,
it all locked in.
It all locked in.
Yeah, right.
Nothing else required. I was like, oh my God, cardboard.
That's amazing.
You can do so many really cool stuff with cardboard. And then there was one time as well that there was an exhibition here in Australia, and there was this whole sofa made out of cardboard. I can't remember the name of the exhibition, but the point is, cardboard is really, really flexible. You can use it in many ways. It can be recycled. It could be like in the natural color. It could be with different paint on it. You can have like whatever thing you imagine, you can use cardboard for. It's just people don't really go for it. There's some who are doing work with the cardboard. But the cardboard could be really strong. And if you start playing with the folding and ensembles of the cardboard, you get something ridiculously powerful. But it's about like trial and error, I guess.
Because when you say things like that, I think like we have a real housing crisis in Australia and all over the world, and the ability to build cheap, good quality housing that's thermally efficient, quickly, all of that is a real necessity. And maybe people are looking at these other building materials.
Maybe.
Yeah, because the amount of cardboard and paper that gets thrown away, and supposedly gets dealt with, but most of it ends up in landfill. That's the reality, right? It is. It is the reality.
Yeah.
It's quite disturbing when you peel back the layers of what happens after it leaves your recycling bin. So
yes.
Now I want to get onto the renewable energy side of things, and you've done a lot of work with solar panels, and I haven't asked, how did you get to where you are now at RMIT?
Another funny story.
Good. More stories are better. Love it.
It's just, life is unexpected, and you just need to grab the opportunities when you have them. It was this time I was still without a job, and then I was talking with this architecture friend of mine who is into sustainability architecture, and she told me like, Alex, you should look at LinkedIn. Sometimes they have interesting things, and you could definitely do a master's by research project. And I said, okay, I'm going to look into it. And then there was this like random post saying like, oh, there's going to be like, this is opportunity for a market by research on circular economy opening RMIT. But then like the deadline was, I don't know, August 10, and it was August 6. And you need to, like develop the research proposal and all of that. And I said, okay, I have like 4 days to do this. Okay, boom, 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 boom. And actually my topic was using paper as insulation materials, because it was on the School of Property Construction and Project Management. So that was my proposal. And then when I got called for the interview, they were saying like, I really like the idea of the proposal, and it will be good for the school. The only thing is that for this specific project, we're not a project that is only one career or one sort of group. It is combining 3 different groups within the school, and then we have like 3 different topics that you can choose from. And within the topics, I thought, okay, solar panels is the one that I can relate to because it's an object. The other ones were more towards textile and plastics, but from a broader perspective. So I said, okay, solar panel sounds something that I could do because it's a tangible object, and because of my industrial design background, I would be able to actually go deep into it. And then I started working on it, but then the group was called IC3P. It's a very long name. I can never remember what was the name.
The acronym will do,
yeah. But the point was trying to mix like engineering and circular economy and like social research people to try to understand different points of view from the same sort of problem. So my research was more towards understanding the social aspects of the solar panel waste. And then we started to realize really interesting things with the solar panel, in the sense of it obviously depending on the place where you are, the solutions that you can apply, like that you can embrace. In Australia, as most of the solar panels are imported, you could have all this different variety of design for recyclability or design for circularity. But if you don't really manufacture them, then it's like, okay, what can you do? And then my research was trying to understand what would make people trust each other along the supply chain. What do they need to trust on? What make you decide that you will reuse your solar panels? What would make a shareholder call the recycler and said, I want you to take my solar panel to a recycling facility instead of the landfill? All these kind of things that normally they are overseen. And as well, I wanted to know the insight from the installers, like saying, which kind of ways or what do you think that it could be done differently? What do you think that we could focus to? So solar panels is actually one of the passions now after 4 years, 5 years, but there's so much about it, more than only technology.
It's funny how they've always, now they're saying because they're so cheap, they're almost looked at the new kind of fencing. So from a farming and agricultural perspective, using them as fencing. And even the old ones, you look and you go, well, they're very symmetrical and their tolerances are pretty damn good that in a way they would make, if you couldn't use them electrically, before you recycle them, that you could reuse them for other purposes to build formwork. I don't know. I see them and I go, there's so many options of how you could use. So I know I've jumped away a little bit from recycling. Is that something that is part of that process? You looked at all of that? Definitely.
Actually, my research, recycling is at the very end of the waste management strategies, because the framework that I used is more towards the 10 R's for circularity, meaning there's
explain that. Yeah, please.
There's other 8 different strategies that you can use before a product goes to recycling.
Wow.
So it goes about thinking about reducing, like reusing, refusing, remanufacturing, repurposing, remanufacturing, redesigning, and another one that as well I'm missing, but I will come back to it. But then it's about trying to be more creative with the use of the products before you can actually send it to be recycled. Because in the end, they will be recycled. But there's so many other things that you can do with it
before they become. And that's the thing, because in a lot of cases, people are going, end of life, recycle. Hang on a sec. What about him here? Because recycling takes a lot of bloody energy too, doesn't it?
It does, and the logistics as well, and all the resources that in Australia they are required for taking the solar panel from one place to another. Because as well, that's another thing that Australia has. The distances are so big that you need to think about, like, as well for the companies, what would make it easier for them to collect solar panels and bring them to these different kind of facilities. Because if it's not profitable for them,
they're not going to do it.
Then exactly, how do you incentivize them to be able to do it? And it is all related to how you can create new ways of acting, new ways of thinking, and new ways to actually proposing things to be done. And there's actually research on it. It's just it was not that popular before. When I started all of this, my research was one of the few that would focus. One of the few worldwide that would focus on social aspects for solar panel waste management, because everyone was focusing on recycling bits. But then papers from United States and from Germany and from many other parts of the world, they were saying, okay, what happens if you have the technology for recycling? What would make people actually put the panels into the recycling path? And it's very interesting to see that there's a lot of literature on it, but even if people don't have the infrastructure, but they would like to, they would create those pathways. But it's because the people want to. If they would be the other way around and they have the infrastructure, but the people is not incentivized, they won't do it. Hence, my research was aimed towards understanding the people that is involved and the different kind of drivers and barriers that would make them actually do things, and understanding that although you are obviously linked by, I don't know, regulations and technical capability, what is your, like, what's actually making your people do the things that they're supposed to do or the things that they are not supposed to do.
And these drivers weren't just financial, were they? There was,
no.
Can you talk, and look, maybe before you talk about, come back to, but can you explain to the people who don't know what the circular economy actually means? What is this concept? Because you hear a lot of people talk about it. What does it actually mean to you?
Yeah, I was going to say to me.
To you, yeah.
Because
that's
like last week I learned that there's like more than 200 definitions of circular economy, you know? Yeah.
Oh boy.
That's one of the problems.
We'll just stick with the most important one, yours today.
Mine. So mine goes along the fact of you need to make the materials for the products last for longer. They need to be somehow being regenerative or trying to do something regenerative and avoid waste. Definitely avoid waste. And within the circular economy mindset, you can use many things. You can try to see, for example, apply symbiosis, and then you can see how things will connect to each other. You can use like the biomimicry design, that you are trying to emulate something from the nature. And the one that I choose was the 10 R's for circularity, where you can have different strategies before sending something to be waste. Because ideally, you shouldn't have waste. In nature, there is no waste because everything has its own different stakeholder that will make use of it.
Wow. You're right.
That's why, for me...
That's a good definition of a stakeholder, isn't it?
Yeah, because it is. There are stakeholders for every single thing. The only thing is that you need to think about it. And that's the part where you need a human brain to link all these dots and realize what can be related to who. And then circular economy is about that. It's about making those dots that would link people, products, or people and solutions to avoid waste. And maybe not with circular economy, because not with solar panels, but in the end, it would be to try to regenerate nature in some way.
So
definitely.
Let's get to those drivers that are not just financial. And I would have been shocked if you said they were just purely financial, because hey, we're dealing with human beings. Yeah, it's not AI making these decisions yet.
Definitely not.
So tell us, what are some of the drivers?
Well, one of the first ones that I figure out is the trust. Meaning, if you're the manufacturer, you need to make your client trust that they can trust in your product, being for example, you can apply the warranties. But then if you are the customer, you need to trust that the installer will do its job and they will install it properly.
Wow.
So it would perform the way it should perform. Because, need to say, many people are, well, I read this as well last week, about 60% of the installations in Australia, they are not properly working. And they are still trying to understand on why, because it's not precisely the product. So they're understanding if it would be related to other aspects.
Yep, gotcha.
Then you need to trust that they're going to install your solar panels the proper way. And then once they are reach their end of life, and let's say you're one of these people who actually call someone to come and get your panels to be recycled, you need to trust that they're going to be recycled.
Oh, boy.
Hence, this is one of the major issues that I found out. It was that people who would send their panels to be recycled to XYZ company, and then they realize that the company doesn't recycle them, but they send them to landfill. Then they create that barrier in there, in the sense of they don't trust that the panels can be recycled. Then what do? They just go straight to the landfill.
And that's on top of the fact that you've got a trust chain, that if it's broken at any point, breaks the whole thing.
It is.
Even before that.
You see, that's exactly what I was going to get to, because it is about that trust, and trust is about communication and ways to actually have some guarantee of the product or the material or the service. And for example, for recyclers, they need to know which kind of materials they can actually get out of the panel. How much of the materials, which is the quality of them, which is like the information on the product. Hence, now there's like these kind of solutions that are aiming towards a digital passport for solar panels, because then it's going to make easier for all these other different processes down the
What do you mean?
life
What do you
cycle.
mean by a digital passport for solar panels?
Good question. So that's something that has been implemented in Europe, but as well that can be implemented in here, meaning the solar panel will have like a small label saying, well, a lot of information depending on who designs this passport, but it could say which materials they have, where do they come from, how much they might last, which is the percentage that they used of one thing or the other. So that will inform the people who's going to recycle them, for example.
Oh, okay.
How much silicon, how much silver, how much
Okay.
aluminum is there, how many glass, because now there's so many types of solar panels.
Yeah, there is.
So many designs.
Yes.
That is quite hard for recyclers as well to create just one solution for all of them. It's recycling, it is something that really needs research because there's many changes coming along with the solar panels. And the more that I talk to people, it was like the solar panels before were manufactured in a different way. They had, I don't know, for example, more silver, more silicon. The newest one, they don't have that much content. So for recyclers, it's going to be like,
I've based my whole business on lots of silver. Now they're getting rid of silver and they're changing to copper because some of them are looking at
exactly,
that.
exactly.
there goes my business. Yeah,
You
wow.
see? So it does require a lot of R&D because
Gee.
you need to have that information beforehand to know what you're going to do with it. And obviously for recyclers, it's huge pressure because then, okay, maybe they will be able to recycle it, but then what do they do with the material that they recycle? Who's going to buy them? So it's a lot of things that are involved in recycling. But then one of the strategies would be, how can you extend the life cycle of the solar panels before the recycling bit goes on? Because the recycling strategy is still being developed. There's many processes for recycling, and each of them has its pros and its cons. But the point is, how do we give ourselves that time? How do we deal with the amount of solar panels that are coming, I think, in 2045, something like that? So it's a lot of things going on in the solar panel industry. But again, it could be that here in Australia, you don't manufacture solar panels. But then in Europe, there's a company that is saying that they can create modular solar panels that can be unassembled and then they could be recycled. So
we do manufacture one panel, Tindo.
Copper. Yeah, Tindo Solar.
But it's not fully, they're not making the cells here as far as I know. They're more, when people go manufacturing, in most cases they mean assembling.
Yes.
It's not true, depends on your definition of manufacturing, I suppose. But I know what you mean. To me, the biggest, the way to cope with what you've just said is don't give any sort of, I may have taken my Greenwood hat off. Don't give any incentives to take perfectly decent panels off roofs to replace with new ones because it's driven by the fact that it'll be a cheaper overall for the domestic, especially the domestic market. If we rip off your panels that are 5 or 6 years old and put a whole new lot on, that shouldn't be allowed. And most installers are really unhappy about doing that, but they won't make the sale unless they toe the line.
It is a thing. So that's where we put people in jeopardy and people jobs in jeopardy as well.
Right.
So you need to think about the entire, you see, it's again, trying to think about how the system actually works to understand what could you do. Because, okay, I understand that I was talking with a lot of people involved within the supply chain of solar panels. And then I was thinking, well, what would happen if we have something like they have in Germany, like the extended product responsibility for the solar panels. And then as Australia doesn't have like a huge manufacturing presence.
Not anymore.
It's like, what are they going to do? Like sometimes you get sold whatever amount of panels from a company somewhere in the world, and sometimes that company doesn't exist anymore if you want to claim your warranty. So those are like the kind of holes that sometimes exist in Australia in the sense of you don't have the control of the manufacturing bit. So what can you do? It's about looking for those answers.
It's not only that. I mean, like there's a classic example like panels that have to be certified, and sometimes the certification runs out, and the poor supplier is left with container loads of panels,
Yes.
and then the manufacturer says, well, I'm not going to certify that particular model because it costs us so much to certify. We've got new models coming out. What happens to them? Maybe they can go to other countries. There's a big trade going into Africa.
Yeah.
Second-hand Australian solar panels are much better than the new Chinese panels they can buy because the African countries don't get offered tier 1. They get offered a really low, crappy grade. I've spoken to a few people. So, but then there's a whole logistics about shipping panels and testing them and this, that and the other. It's hard. And there's millions of the bloody things.
There's
millions of them.
And they are heavy.
They are heavy.
So that's one of the things as well. It's about understanding, for example, the installers. What would it be for them to take, like when they are taking the solar panels off, what can incentivize them to, instead of just throw them to the truck or to the floor,
into the skip,
like try to handle them in the same way as you would handle a new one. It's many things that are.
So you reckon, you're saying that in your experience, a lot of them they just when they take them, they're just tossing them into the. Right.
When I talk to installers, that's what they told me.
Yeah. Wow.
So.
Yeah.
They were saying that if they would have that kind of, I don't know, what they said is when we do like an installation or the installation, we know that those panels, if they're going to go to landfill, no one
we
cares.
Treat them as a lump of concrete. Yeah.
But if they would know that they would go to recycling, that's when they would be like, okay, then now I need to be careful with it.
So there's their driver is going, well, now I know that these are being used and they have more value than, it's just rubbish now. It's like a piece of cardboard, chuck it away.
That's the problem when you treat something as rubbish. The moment that you said something is rubbish or is going to the rubbish, then people start acting with that as if it would be no value, although it does have value. It's just you don't give it.
We shouldn't even use the word rubbish. Everything should be looked at a resource, and sometimes we don't understand what that resource is or its role, and we go, it's like cardboard.
Exactly.
We're talking about building houses, building furniture. It's not just packaging for other stuff.
Exactly. So it's the way that you present it, the way that you communicate the things. Because obviously, again, if we would tell the word rubbish to them, they would treat it as rubbish. But if you tell them, guess what? You have X amount of silver value in that, they're not going to treat it the same way.
No, they're not.
So it's about that. It's about how you can communicate things that change the people's perspective on things and the appreciation as well of things. Because even I was talking with one of the installers, and he was saying like, do you know the amount of plastics that comes with solar panels? Not only in the solar panel itself, but in the packaging.
Packaging, yes.
And that I didn't realize because I have never seen, obviously, a solar panel like being brand new installed.
Yeah.
And he was saying it's a lot of plastic. There must be someone looking at all that amount of plastic. And I'm like, okay, that's a new thing that has just been completely blown at me because that's another thing that if no one else tells me that that's the problem, I wouldn't imagine it.
Yeah, there's a huge waste stream, and like the people who do work at a high level have got a site waste management strategy or site waste management plan that takes into consideration the different waste components and how much they weigh, how much area they take up, cubic meter, all that stuff, and how much it costs and how much it can be recycled. And you can ask your supplier to go, hey, I don't need that pallet wrapped with all this extra plastic. Get rid of it, because we've found it doesn't secure the load any more than the standard packaging. But at the same time, you need a certain amount of. You don't want them being delivered on site and suddenly they just fall out and break. So it's a hard. Or at least if you're going to use plastic, make it stuff that will break down in a couple of months or something.
It is. You see? Here's where material innovation has a space.
Yes.
Some sort of really genius about material innovation, please come.
It's a really good point. Because especially when you're talking about these big commercial jobs, there's a humongous amount of waste.
It is.
And then small domestic jobs, not as much, but magnify that by hundreds of thousands of installs happening all the time. Yeah, it's monumental.
It is, and obviously that's plastic that is not going to be recycled, right? Because
that's right.
It's treated as this kind of waste that is so big that it's part of like construction thing, and it's just like
it's wrapped up, mixed up with other
everything
stuff.
is mixed up. Yeah, like the same sort of issue in recycling everywhere in the world. If it's like contaminated,
mingled. It's
very
too
hard.
expensive. Now I got to ask you slightly off track, but it's sort of what do you think of the countries that actually burn industrial waste to create?
Very tricky thing.
Yeah, I know it's a hard one, isn't it? Like, because China are going crazy. They are spending a lot to process their waste, and they're burning it, creating electricity. I don't know what they do with the filters on these smokestacks, because they must be toxic as all heck. But what do you reckon about that?
Well, the framework that I used, it's from Jacqueline Kramer. So she's like really good circular economy representative, but from the Netherlands. And within the 10 R's that she has, recover, with like energy recover purposes, is the last circular economy strategy. And even she says, this is not precisely a circular economy perspective, because you don't regenerate anything to the nature, you don't reuse the materials, you don't extend the life cycle of the material. No. Whatever you do is
burn them.
You just avoid going to the landfill.
Right.
So it is, but it's not in the same way. Because yes, you avoid resources that would be used for generating energy in a different way, but nevertheless, you need a humongous amount of energy to burn them.
To burn it, to burn it to create. So it's
energy. Like, okay, maybe you would need one of these kind of LCA things, like the life cycle analysis, to try to discover what would actually be useful and what not. But I know that it's working for some of the countries to at least reduce the amount of materials going to landfill, because obviously landfills are a worldwide problem.
I think that digital passport you mentioned is a fantastic idea. There's only one sticking point potentially, and that's the revealing, like, in particular IP in regards to their particular style, AB, back contact, whatever special U-Butte cell that this particular company's come up with, and maybe by showing percentages of certain things, it might give it away. But apart from that, I don't know.
It's hard.
What do you reckon?
Like, we would need to see what it actually looks like and how it works to see which kind of information you need in there. Because one of the things that I was talking with someone else, it was the fact that some of the solar panels, they have, I think it was like a very cheap EVA. So that meant that the solar panel, like all the other materials within the solar panel, they were functioning perfectly. But if it was like a cheap EVA, that means that it wouldn't hold all the layers together.
Yes.
And then only because of the quality of the EVA, then the entire panel stopped
Weakest
working.
link in the chain, like everything.
You see? So it's like...
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you would have like a really good quality glass or a really good quality copper. If the EVA kind
shitty
of
EVA,
and then the entire thing would go to waste.
Oh boy.
That's why these kind of things like would be some sort of like control measurements, in the sense of at least you know what you're dealing with. If you don't know what you're dealing with, it's very difficult for you to try to get a solution, or at least try to think of a solution, if you don't really know what it is in there.
Yeah, it's I never thought about before, and you hit the nail on the head. I'm receiving these solar panels. I have expectations about certain recovery rates based on what have you, but I'm not getting them because, hey, they're suddenly not using this, or they changed it to that, or whatever. So
Yes.
it's really interesting.
That's why you need to know.
You really do need to know.
Knowing, actually, information is power. Yeah. Because you do need to know.
You do.
Even if you want to have it for reusing purposes. Like the reusing, they need to go through a testing process and then to know if they can be used. And Australia is actually really good trying to push for the reusing of solar panels as well. But the certified kind of use, in the sense of, that it's not going to like literally bail on you. But all of that is like still a work in progress. But there's many things going on. There's many special people who is trying to push for that. And it's this kind of collaborations between someone from the industry, someone from different kind of governments, someone from different parts of the community. And it's just, the solutions are still being developed, but they are there. And that's the thing. It's like trying to push the things that are being done, and whenever they need support, give that support to them.
Have you, and I reckon you have, but I'll ask it anyway. You're looking at solar panels, but you know the next big thing is going to be batteries.
Oh, yes.
So have you been looking at batteries as well?
Slightly, because within the group of the IC3P group, we had like different kind of research going on, and one of my colleagues was working on lithium batteries, and then it was a massive issue as well, because those ones, like they're flammable. It's not that easy to dispose of them in a safe way.
Yeah, it's not like a solar panel.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like the solar panel, they are not going to explode, but the batteries, they are. And then obviously solar panels and batteries, they are linked in the sense of there is research that is showing that you can recover silicon from obviously the silicon solar panels, and you can reintroduce them into the batteries manufacturing processes. And that's there's a lot of literature on that, but there's, I think, one of the universities that was doing this, I don't know, maybe like 4 years ago. Maybe they're still doing that. It was like Deakin University. And they had a lot of research on this. So it's about trying to see how you link things. Because, for example, with solar panels, right now, it's very hard to introduce recovered materials from solar panels into the solar panel manufacturing supply chain. But maybe you can introduce them to a different chain. And in this case, they were researching to introduce it into the battery manufacturing chain. So that's the thing, is trying to look for different solutions. Like the closed solution would be that you would recover silver and the copper from one solar panel and you would reintroduce it into a new solar panel. There's already like studies working on that. But as well, there's the other hand of what can you do. So now what they are doing is like they are putting some of the recovered materials into concrete, which is, again, is trying to avoid the landfill phase, which is good, but at the same time, it's like you are not being able to separate all those different kind of elements to give it a proper use or remanufacturing purpose for that.
I like that you mentioned about the concrete, because there's a few people getting old tyres, and I know I'm not going to talk earth ships. They're an interesting concept themselves, but people are using old tyres and doing roads with them, and basically filling the tyres, and of course then you can buy rubber. You can buy there's a name for the tyres that have been broken down into small pieces, and they can add that to concrete, and without compromising the structural integrity too much. All the calculations.
Yep.
So it's interesting, but again, it comes that's at the end, and it'd be great if these things could be reused, and I think that's going to be financial incentive. I think that's the only way to curb that, taking totally decent panels off the roof and replacing.
In this case, it could be both, like having like the regulatory part saying that you must do this, and at the same time saying, guess what, you're going to have like the financial benefit for it. That will help. Because sometimes if they're trying to do it by themselves, it's not going to be, for example, when I was talking to one of the wholesalers for solar panels, they were like, you know what, I would be able to say, me as a company, I will be able to take back the solar panels that are not good with warranty. Like within the warranty period, I will take them back and I will be able to see maybe which kind of recycling pathways it could go. But if I'm the only one that does it, then I won't do it. I would do it only if it's the same fair game for all of them, like all the wholesalers.
Gee.
So it's like, okay, it does make sense in the point, like you need to have that kind of support, saying if it will be like, let's say, mandatory that all the whole suppliers would be required to do this, then it would be somehow incentivizing them to do it. Then it's like, I would say it requires many approaches and many angles to create a solution that will work for everyone. But it definitely needs more like research on it, and as well more trials to see what does work and what can work within the Australian context.
It's really interesting, isn't it? Because unless they're an early adopter, no one's going to go out on their own. It's like, and I'll be very careful with this comparison, and it's like the slave owners' plantations, right? There's a lot of the slave owner plantations wanted not to have slaves. They wanted to pay them. But if they did, they weren't economically competitive because everyone else is not paying them. So they all have to start paying the slaves, so they become, workers who get paid all at the same time. Then they're all on equal footing. So it's a big thing.
So you see, in there, you need to include the social part, like the social factors into all this development of the new solutions that would be for a specific topic.
Yes.
Let's say, I don't know, if the solar panels from China are more, if they are cheaper because they have cheaper labor. So which are the conditions of the workers in China that would make your solar panel be cheaper? Meaning, you don't know if they are having fair working conditions.
Yeah. That's starting to happen, though, with the whole environmental social governance stuff and the carbon accounting side of things, which most people find incredibly confusing because it sort of is scope 1, 2 and 3, God knows, and but I think as people are held more to account, in other words, the stick approach, you got to do it or else you get whacked on the head. That's because sometimes you do. It's finding out whether it's the carrot approach or the stick approach.
It is.
Sometimes it's both, but it just depends, doesn't it?
It does. And you need to understand the people that you are talking with and your supply chain and your sector. If you understand that, then you will be able to pinpoint what are the needs that you need to address. If you just try to make something like general, you are not actually going to make it work. So it's about that. It's about understanding. But you cannot understand if you don't know how to listen and if you don't really have that sort of input from the people who is on the ground, and they will be able to tell you the things.
So this is all, it all comes back to a lot of communication with people who are actually doing it, in addition to research out there, but it's so important to get the opinions of people who are actually involved in this industry, who are doing it on a day-to-day, because they know that, they know their stuff, don't they?
It is. Like, for example, what I mentioned about the plastic.
Yeah.
I could be here on my chair doing research without never being able to install a solar panel. Then how would I know the amount of plastic that it is involved in installing on?
You wouldn't. Yeah.
I really this collaboration needs to happen because without that, there is you are developing blind solutions that are not going to work for everyone.
I'll definitely put you in contact with Darren Johansson from the Smart Energy Council.
I know.
Oh, you know Darren. Oh, yeah, right.
I know Darren.
I think maybe he did suggest you. Yeah, sorry. So he was he's a smart man. He's super passionate. He's super passionate about all this.
It's fantastic.
Now, what's next for Alex? As in, you're doing this now. Yes. What's happening? Have you got any plans for the future?
I do, in the sense of there could be two possibilities. One is doing a PhD and go deeper into these kind of issues, or go into the community engaging communication part. Meaning, where can I have more impact? For me right now, it's about understanding that where could I actually make things change and make things a bit different. For example, with the community project that I am leading, it was really good because I could get people from different organizations come and talk to your regular neighbor who maybe doesn't know anything about sustainability or maybe doesn't know that circular economy exists. But then if I bring someone, like a person, talking to them saying, hey, I've done this for this amount of time, I'm working with that, and this is what we have learned. So I had a really good experience from one workshop. We brought, I don't know if you have heard of Reground. So Reground are these non-for-profit. They work in Victoria, and now they have expanded to Sydney. But they started just collecting the coffee grounds to make them compost.
Oh no! Sorry. Yeah, I have. Yeah, yes.
They are really good, and they are about waste management as well, with companies and apartment buildings. And anyways, so within the workshop, they were saying, you know how long it takes a lettuce to just biodegrade in landfill. And everyone was saying it's lettuce, right? It's organic. It must be 1 year, blah, blah, blah. And then we had a contest saying who will get closest to the amount of years that it will take between like aerobic or anaerobic conditions. And then anyways, the end line was 25 years. No one would understand that if Reground wouldn't have come to our workshop and expand our conception of landfill. And it was like something that stuck to the people who was in the workshop, because I don't know, like 1 week later, I go to one of the shops near my place, and then the girl who works in there, she was like, "Oh, Alex, guess what? The other day I had a customer coming, and he came all excited and telling me, you know how long it takes a lettuce to decompose in landfill?" And you're, "No." And she was like, "Yes, guess what?" And he told me that he learned about it in your workshop.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And I'm like, wow. So, these kind of things that, again, you don't really think about it when you invite someone to talk and just like share their experience, share the things that they have learned through their work or whatever they do. And then it would stuck to someone. And then you realize it's just not one person, maybe two. And then you think that, okay, maybe this is what I could do. Maybe it's just trying to somehow make people more aware of these things, make people more aware of the solutions that are already there. They just need more support in some way. So to answer the question in a short way, I don't know. I'm still trying to decide.
Have you heard of a person called Joost Becker?
No.
He, I'll send you his details. He developed a system many years ago, and he's of Dutch background, but he's based in Victoria. He had the system of very rapid composting for restaurants in the Melbourne CBD, a system that just sits outside the actual restaurant. And he also opened up a chain of restaurants a few years ago, I can't remember the name, where everything, all the cutlery, all the bowls, everything was compostable.
Wow.
He's also been involved in environmental building design. He has a passive solar house that has a combination of, I think, zinc oxide with straw bale. He's he's been doing it for a very long time. I'll send you the link. Really interesting guy. He's right into waste management, and his background is horticulture. So the foliage industry and all of that. So he trying to work out how to utilise waste. And again, not using the word waste, because waste is a resource we haven't got a name for it yet. So there is some, and you're right, and we were talking about it before, there's some damn interesting people doing some really good stuff. And that's what we have to concentrate on, not the doom and gloom.
Yeah.
You know?
Like another really good example that I came across the other day, Geelong, I think it's called Geelong Sustainability, and they have like different kind of activities, but one of the ones that actually caught my eye, it's like this project where they create visits for these houses that they have some sort of degree of sustainability. So they would just showcase what can be done. And again, if I would have randomly just step on them, I wouldn't know that exists. And then it's like, how do you make people aware of these things? Make it normal. Make it normal that you go to Coles and then you talk to the cashier like, guess what? I heard this thing. And then Coles will answer like, oh, guess what? I have heard of the other thing. For example, the last workshop that I had for my community project, it was about like the library tool. The tools library. And they were saying like, oh, there's not that many in Victoria. There's maybe like 4 or 5. And I was thinking, well, if more people knew that they exist, they wouldn't all just go and buy one, one drill for one time that they use it per year.
Yeah.
So that kind of ideas and solutions, it's like we need to make them more popular. We need to make them more like modern, more trendy, because they are the way that you can move forward. It's just normally you don't pay attention to it.
It just takes a bit of time to seek them out. We talked about I discovered this Sam Bentley, who you've known about for a while, on LinkedIn, doing some showcasing some amazing things that people are doing around the world. Really amazing stuff, like living walls. Some amazing stuff. I am excited because it's like, there's people out there doing this stuff. Alex, we could talk. We could talk for hours. I really thanks so much for saying yes and coming on. I'd definitely like you to come back for a part 2.
Sure.
There's quite a few people that I reckon you should meet, so I'll be sending links to their, details, and then you start the conversation, because it's really important when like-minded people come together, and not necessarily like-minded, because that creates some interesting conversation.
Yeah,
so
the variety.
the variety is the key. Yeah. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Delilah. It was lovely. It was very nice to chat to you. And it was, for me as well, very good to know that someone within the solar panel industry is doing these kind of things. It's like, oh my God, super excited as well.
No, it's been a total pleasure. Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you so much for everything, Belly.